Okay. I think I'm recording. Okay, so welcome everyone. This is my very first attempt at doing this. Although I did just record a podcast for my work the other day with a colleague of mine. So I suppose it's not technically my first attempt, but it's certainly my first attempt at doing my own one. And I actually had recorded something once previously to that, so I suppose actually it's my third attempt. But certainly going to be the first video that I upload to my own YouTube channel. So my name is Belinda Knight. I live in Perth, Western Australia, which is on land traditionally owned by the Whadjuk Noongar people of Western Australia. They were the Aboriginal Australians who lived here many, many years before British settlement. And I would like to take this opportunity to pay my respects to Aboriginal elders past, present and emerging. Why am I making this video and subsequent videos? Well, there are two main reasons for this. The first one is that for the past sort of 10, maybe even 15 years now, I've been on a self-development journey, essentially. I've been, I got interested in the idea of, I guess, self-help / self-development. I'm not even sure why exactly originally, probably because I was really depressed. And I saw a bunch of psychologists and all that kind of stuff that you do, and none of them were very helpful. But that sort of led me to reading a lot of books, some bad, some good. And these days I listen to a lot of podcasts and watch a lot of vodcasts, vlogcasts. I'm not sure what you call them, video podcasts anyway. Which, are by people who are, in the space of self-development, self-improvement, mindfulness also, some sort of philosophical stuff, some sort of psychological stuff, some more practical and some more informational. And look, there are some really, really great podcasts out there, and I don't intend to compete with them necessarily. However, I have a lot of these in my feed now, and I can't help but notice that there are basically no women talking about this subject. I have managed to find a few really great female podcasters who have some content on self-growth and on self-worth, and it tends to be mixed in with other female problems sort of material, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's probably what you need to do in order to have a successful podcast, especially if you want your podcast to be adopted by women. However, yeah, I just recently became aware when I was watching, I think it was Chris Williamson, who is a podcaster who I very much admire. He says some things that are just wrong, and other things that I don't necessarily agree with, but he has great guests, and I admire the journey that he's taken to becoming YouTube famous, having come off Lonely Island, Love Island, the way he did. Anyway, I was watching one of his podcasts, and as I was sort of scrolling through the different podcasters that I watch, I just suddenly realized that these are all podcasts made by men for men. So they occasionally have women as guests on their show. However, it's very clear that the target audience of those podcasts are men. And it's also almost shocking to me that in spite of the fact that there are so many women that work in fields like psychology, social work, self-development, self-growth, that so few are talking about this online in a podcast kind of format, or at least not that I've been able to find, and thanks to YouTube's impossibly difficult to navigate suggestion engines, they may exist and they may just not come up on my feed because YouTube just doesn't rank them very highly in terms of what it believes about my personal behavior from years and years of gathering my data. However, I feel like for my own journey to continue and continue to evolve, it might be worth me starting my own podcast on this subject matter. I think that it's pretty fair to say that most of these people who are doing self-development podcasts are doing so both to spread the message, but also to help their own self-development journey. And that's very much what I'm hoping to achieve with this podcast. So, excuse me, I'm just getting over the cold flu. I'm not sure what it is, so I've got a bit of a cough. I apologize. So I wanted to make a video or set of videos, whole series, who knows how long it'll go for, about things that I've learned, so far in my self-development journey, things that are important to me, that I think, topics that I think are important to me and that are especially that are important to women who are looking to learn more about themselves, who are learning to gain a greater satisfaction in their spiritual life. And when I say spiritual, I'm not referring to anything related to any type of religion. I use the term spirit in the way that you might refer to mind, body, and spirit. So I believe that one spirit is the amorphous, non-physical part of ourselves, which we cannot dissect, we cannot study using conventional medicine, but which is very clearly a part of us. Our spirit encompasses everything from our the way we behave, our value system, our energy. They're just the energy that we the energy that we convey, when around other people. All of which has an incredible knock-on flow effect for our relationships, and in turn, affects us. That you can't look past really the need to have, I think, good emotional awareness, a good, healthy balance of spirituality, along with looking after your physical and mental health in today's world. There are a lot of careers that will ask you to set aside your values. In fact, for that matter, there are a lot of non-paid vocations, I'll call them, which will ask you to set these aside and put your blinkers on and not see certain things and take certain things for granted just as being the case or truth or whatever, without really having an opinion or really allowing yourself to question those things. And look, I'm a troubled person. I have been troubled since a very young age. That's gotten a lot better. It continues to get better. But from age 11 right through to about age 26, I really, really struggled with questions of existentialism, and I went through various. I tried various things to resolve my existential crisis, only to eventually learn enough about science and learn enough about the world, I guess, to realize that, first of all, there is no way to understand everything. So although it's very valid and very important, I believe that as a group, as a community, that we continue to investigate the nature of life and the nature of human existence and psychology and things. I also have gained acceptance of the fact that I will never have all of that understanding, and just being able to surrender, to the idea that there is no universal equation that will allow me to live my life the way that in such a fashion that it will guarantee me a happy ever after. Just that acceptance has definitely helped me to relax a little bit, when it comes to questions of existentialism. But I'm not going to lie and say that it doesn't still bother me sometimes. I'm no longer bothered so much by the big existential stuff, like who am I, and where am I, and what does all this mean. But I am quite bothered often by the state of the world, the state of society, the social contract, certainly by political issues. And I'm not going to talk about politics on this channel because I don't want this to become some debate about left versus right, or democracy versus any other type of political system. I try to stay out of politics, whilst at the same time trying to always further my understanding of how it can best be navigated, in order to help not only myself but also people more vulnerable and in greater need than I am. So I am a student again. I studied fresh out of high school. I went to university and I did a Bachelor of Computing and Mathematical Sciences for 2 years. This was way back in 1993. I started at university. Yeah, shout out to the Gen Zs, Gen X's in the audience. So I started uni in 1993 doing a Bachelor of Computing and Mathematics. Now, I was the best student in my high school computing class, and I got to university and I went, holy shit, because there were some kids in my class that were so good that they intimidated the shit out of me, to be honest. And I think I made straight C's in my second year. I could barely program the final assignment. I mean, it was a pretty much a disaster area, but I did pass. I think I got 51 or 53% maybe for my 2 computer science units. Similar sort of grades for my mathematics units. And I decided at that point that I might want to try my hand at something at which I could actually be a bit better. Essentially based on the premise that I would be one day looking to find employment in this role, And I just didn't see myself sitting in front of an employer saying, oh yes, I'm the best person for the job, when in the back of my head I knew full well that there were people out there who were way better programmers than I was ever going to be. And so I switched over and started studying biochemistry and pharmacology, anatomy, human biology. Did my PhD, worked for 10 years as a postdoctoral scientist, and then walked away from it. Yeah, and I won't get into that, but I won't get into that too much. It's actually a very common story. When you circulate in those fields, lots of people who go down that path wind up leaving that career. I gave it a good hot go. I was successful. It wasn't what I wanted to be doing. So after then spending the next 10 years sort of meandering around doing not very much at all, I eventually decided that I wanted to study social work. And I came to this decision because I hit the skids. I was in a series, I would say actually, of relationships that went from mildly abusive to extremely abusive. We were also involved in using drugs and eventually selling drugs. Not recommended. It was all very traumatic, and when you're living that sort of lifestyle, I mean, it's almost par for the course that you will wind up at some point homeless. And I was homeless for 6 months, and for the first 4 of those 6 months, I had the very, very fortunate position of being in that I had a car. So I didn't have a license. My license had been suspended, but I had a car. So I was able to sleep in my car. So I always called myself bourgeoisie homeless, because I didn't face half of the problems that the rest of the homeless community did. But I did spend a lot of time, during the days, over those days, with other homeless people and talking to them, and trying to find out a little bit about their stories, and find out about, not what led them to homelessness, but I guess what the hurdles were for them in overcoming their situation. And it gave me some really unique insights, which I'm hoping I will be able to carry forward with me, and as I go through my degree. And I don't expect to be working as a social worker at the end of my degree. I want to work in homeless outreach specifically, and I have a particular idea which I won't go into, but I want to try to give hope back to some of these people, particularly the homeless, but that also extends to other groups who are vulnerable and who are socially outcast, and who've spent a long time in that space, to the point where they really don't have any hope that anything can be any better. I think that we're going about it kind of the wrong way at the moment, and I'm not saying that I know what the right way is, but I think I have some ideas, and I would like to at least have an opportunity to maybe test run some of those ideas. So that's sort of my long-term goal. Anyway, getting back to the self-development, self-help type thing, which is really, I intend to be the core focus of these podcasts. yeah, I hope to be able to share some wisdom with you. I hope to be able to share some tools that I have learnt, and I'm not just talking about meditation. Everyone talks about meditation. Tools for self-love, tools for building self-esteem, tools for climbing up out of a hole. I mean, I was in a highly abusive relationship. I was trapped. I did the same thing that every woman who is in a domestic violence relationship does, where I left and then would go back, and left and would go back, and left and went back, and left and went back so many times. I couldn't even count. There would be no point in counting. You know, and every ignorant, can I say asshole? Some of them well-meaning, some of them just rude, including GPs, including police officers, obviously people on the street, friends, associates. They all want to know, well, why do you keep going back? Why don't you just leave? And, the answer is not something that is even clear to myself, even now. I don't think there's ever an answer to that question. For kidnap victims, there's this concept of Stockholm syndrome, and I almost kind of wish like that psychology as a field would sort of get up off its arse and give a name to this same type of syndrome that occurs in women who are victims of abuse, because it would just make it so much easier to be able to answer that question and say, well, I have Stockholm syndrome. And then if they don't know what Stockholm syndrome is, well, they can bloody go look it up or ask ChatGPT or whatever, but the conversation can end there, rather than you having to say, well, I don't know, and for them to say, what do you mean you don't know? Like, well, just leave, just pack up your stuff and leave. You never ever want never want to have that conversation. It's not a conversation that any woman who's in a domestic violence relationship wants to have, because it's not like they rationally don't know that they should leave. It's not like they haven't left. It's not like they haven't tried to leave. The reasons for going back are as complicated as the reasons for why they stay. Often, and it is based around so many things. Codependency, fear, financial abuse. Often, if there are children involved, that just ups the ante. Abusers are very, very good at trapping people in the cycle of abuse. So anyway, so maybe I'll talk a little bit about that on this channel and share a few of my stories. But mostly I want to talk about it from a perspective of how I have begun to move past the trauma. And maybe also interview some other women who I know who have been victims of domestic violence, and talk to them about how they've managed to, start overcoming the trauma that they went through, how they ultimately managed to leave. Talk a little bit maybe even about safety planning and that sort of thing. And then, but really the guts of the podcast, I want to be about just general ideas around self-development and self-growth, and why it's so important, especially I think for women, and I think it really is, I believe, especially important for women, because we neglect ourselves. We neglect ourselves when we become wives. We neglect ourselves further when we become mothers. I'm not a mother, I should say that, just say that straight up front, but all of my friends are. And it's really hard to maintain that balance. We neglect ourselves for our careers, and a lot of women find themselves, one day, suddenly they're aged 40 something, and they've done the career thing, and they've had the kids, and the kids are grown, and they are crying, I don't know who I am. It's like they've lost all touch with themselves. And those are the women that I want to reach. Those are the women that I want to provide a platform for, and hopefully get a bit of a discussion going, and a bit of a, get a bit of a community happening around these podcasts where we can talk to each other, we can share our ideas, our the things that we've gone through, and our struggles, where we're at, and if we are further along the journey, share tips. If we're at the start of the journey, reach out for and receive support. I think this is all incredibly important, and I have no intention to ever monetize this podcast or attempt to monetize this platform or build anything out of this platform that will be monetized or will ever cost anyone a cent. I think that's really important. And the trade-off for that is that you get pretty crummy quality video. I'm sitting in my bedroom literally at the moment, cross-legged on my bed, and the microphone is my computer microphone, so if the quality isn't the greatest, well, that's why. Okay, so I'm going to end the video with just a couple of quick recommendations, because I am a massive fan of documentary. I like books as well. Although I haven't been reading as much lately. I really go through phases with reading. So I haven't been reading as much lately, but I have been watching a lot of documentaries, a lot, and I have a few that I think are worth recommending, especially. You'll find that if you are a fan of true crime, which I know many women are, I will have some good recommendations for you in that space, but I'll try to keep it even. So this week I am recommending on Netflix the documentary The Ghost Train Fire. Now this is a docu-series. It was created by Cara Meldrum, who is the daughter of Ian Molly Meldrum, who, if you're Australian, you will know that name instantly. His daughter Cara is an investigative journalist now. She works for the ABC. Her first docu-series, which was called Expose the Case of Kelly Lane, is also really good. You can watch that on ABC iView, or it might be on Netflix now as well, actually, I think. But her new one, which is called Expose the Ghost Train Fire, is even better, and it's about the 1979 fire that went through Luna Park in Sydney, and it is great. It is really, really good. She really gets to the bottom of the true story, which was completely covered up by everyone right up to the top, right up to the Premier of New South Wales at the time. I'd also like to recommend a documentary called Hot Money. This one I'm pretty sure you can watch on Tubi, Tubi. If you've not used that app yet for watching movies or documentaries, it's a free app. You don't even have to sign in. It is supported by ads, but the ads are very minimal. Like, I hate ads with a passion, and trust me, the ads on Tubi are very, very tolerable. Yeah, and hot money is essentially you know, it is about it's about a little, well, look, it's an American documentary. It's about a little bit of everything. It's a little bit about climate change. It's a little bit about the you know, the Reserve Bank and oh, the whatever it's called over there, and you know, and how they handle the money situation. And yeah, I think it's a really interesting financial profile of, you know, and it was made in 2020. I think it provides a really interesting look at the topic of money and its misuse and its sort of, you know, abuse, I guess, um, and the, you know, some of the social issues that it's caused. And the last one is actually another documentary on ABC iView, and it's called 321 McCartney. Now, I am a fan of the Beatles. I have been ever since I was a little girl, because my dad had many, many albums, and he had many, many Beatles albums, and he used to play them, and Sgt. Pepper's was my favourite, and I loved the Beatles. Paul was my least favourite, always has been. Don't mind his daughter, never really liked Paul much. But I have to say that the docuseries 321 McCartney is, if you're a Beatles fan, give it a look. It's really good. It's really good. And Paul, you know, I think he's mellowed out a bit. You know, he doesn't come across as being the arrogant schmuck in this documentary that he has many other times that I've seen him interviewed in the past. Okay, so that's it for recommendations. And then there's just one thing I would like to finish with, and I apologize. Like I said, I don't want to be political. However, Julian Assange. Everyone knows who he is by now. He's an Australian citizen. He's locked up in Belmarsh, which is the harshest prison in London, awaiting extradition to the US on espionage charges. He's not a young man anymore. He needs help. He needs our help. He needs everyone. He needs everyone's help. He needs the Australian government's help, but they don't really seem to be doing very much to try and help him. They sort of talk about it from time to time, but seems like nothing happens. You know, his wife Stella, and you know, a group called the Assange Campaign, which you can find all over the internet, social media. You know, they organise petitions, they organise rallies, you can donate money. If you don't know about the Julian Assange case and you don't know about exactly his story or what he did, find out, because he didn't really do anything wrong. And if what he did was wrong, then we've got the wrong people deciding what's right and wrong in the world. That's all I'll say about that. Okay, alright, well, have a lovely day, people. I'm going to keep these videos fairly short because I know the people are time poor and it's boring as batshit just sitting here listening to me talk. Yep, if you get around to seeing this video, which you probably won't because I'll probably be at the bottom of all the YouTube feeds until I find a way to get to the top, or nearer to the top. Yeah, thumbs up, subscribe. I've got some playlists, YouTube music playlists, and that's about the rest of my YouTube library. So I'm not going to have a very interesting channel that you can binge watch stuff off, but yeah, I'm going to try and do this about once a week. So we'll see how we go. Hope everyone has a great week. Happy Australia Day to everyone for the 26th. Shout out to all my Aboriginal friends. I know that Australia Day can be a really challenging day for all of you. And just know that, like, we haven't forgotten. We haven't forgotten. You know, we believe in you. We believe in your cause. I believe very, very much that we will get there. We will get there. And I accept you. I see you as equal. I see you as an equal. I see everyone as an equal. So, okay, I will leave it, and we will, until next time.